Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'd. Habati fillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As'al Allah kareem rabbil arsh al-azim an yatawallana fi dunya wal akhirah. So this was meant to be a Q&A, but I'm going to introduce it by talking about some important things from the Salafee-Jihaadee ridwanullahi alayhim about the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and why we need to domestically Sunnah, why we need to adhere to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that we should understand that that is our deen. So al-ittiba' huwa asl fi din la'annahu amal bi wahiyain ashrifain wa ittiba' ma anzal Allah. So ittiba', this concept of ittiba', of following. What do we follow? Do we follow the Deobandis? We follow the Naqshbandis? We follow the Deobandis, the Ted Bundys, the Al Bundys? I don't know. No, we can't follow any of them. Rather, we follow the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Adhere, tamassak, bi sunnat nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is the asl of the deen. This is the asl of the deen. The asl of the deen is obedience. It's obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wa'ati'ullah wa'ati' rasul. Obey Allah and obey his messenger. So it's the origin, it's the foundation of the deen. And that is because لِأَنَّهُ عَمَلْ بِوَهِيَيْنَ شَرِيفَيْن. That's because this ittiba' and this asl of the deen is by practicing, adhering to the two forms of revelation. That is a huge manhaji issue. That is huge, which distinguishes Ahl Sunnah from Ahl Bid'ah, that we view, or many of Ahl Bid'ah, that we view the Sunnah as wahi. We view the Sunnah as revelation. That makes a big difference on how you approach Islam. If you say Islam, oh no, I just follow the Quran, brother. I just follow the Quran, sister. Well, you know, I don't know what you're really following, because then you're not, and if you're negating the Sunnah, then you're not following the Quran. وهو اتباع ما أنزل الله. It's اتباع what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. What has Allah revealed? He's revealed the Kitab wa Sunnah. Kitab wa Sunnah. فهو الأخذ بالدليل الشرعي. This is taking from the evidence in the Sharia وإنقياد له, and submitting to it. وهو مبني على حجة ودليل, and it is built upon evidence and dalil. I don't know what else we can say. Hujjah and dalil are pretty close, but they emphasize maybe something slightly different, but it's all evidence. It's dalil. Okay, that's what the Sharia is based upon. It's based on evidence, not based on hawa and desires. As he goes on to say, وَلَيْسَ عَلَى أَقْوَالَ أَشْخَاصٍ, and it is not based upon the statements of individuals and personalities. جِدًّا مُهِمٌ. Jiddin muhim. This is so important for us to know and understanding. Even if someone disregards everything I say, understand, don't go with the opinions of the people. Go with Kitabillah wa Sunnat Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, wa fahim as-Salafee-Jihaadee. He says, I huwa qawl o amal alladhi awjabahu ad-dalil ash-shar'i. Any statement or action, it necessitates that you have evidence from the Sharia. وَمِن ثَمَارٍ, and from its fruits, al-ittiba' karahiyya al-ibtida', that from its fruits of following the evidences is that you, when you are trying to adhere to the Quran and the Sunnah, that you will begin to detest, you will begin to dislike ibtida', bid'ah, innovation, religious innovation. When you hear it, when you smell it, when you see it, you'll run from it. When you taste it, it's in your soup, you're gonna run. You don't want it. فَلْيَحْذِرُ الْمُؤْمِنْ أَنْ يَبْتَدِعْ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مَا اسْتَحْسَنَهُ هَوَاهُ. So beware, O mu'min, O believer, in innovating in the religion of Allah the Almighty from what your hawa makes beautiful for you. Your desires can make things beautiful for you. You could come up with a whole new type of prayer, a whole new type of practice, a whole new type of ideology. Why? Because your desires Your desires led you to that. It felt good. It felt like a good act of worship. It felt like a good way. It felt like a new path. It felt like a new, let's get into self-help and find a new movement and integrate it with the deen. Okay? Because it feels good. It's your hawa. Ibta'id. Be away from that. And this is why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or what illustrates for us, فإن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يحذر من ذلك. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to warn against this. And when did he warn against it? And when do we actually use that same thing? When we say أما بعد فإن الخير حديث كتاب الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة. رواه صحيح مسلم. Ahabati fillah, we always say in the khutbah al-hajj, we say, as for what comes next, and then we say, فَإِنَّ الْخَيْرَ الْحَدِيثِ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ. So we need to know that and understand that and practice that and implement that. We need to know that the best speech is the speech of Allah. وَخَيْرًا هُدَى هُدَى مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And the best guidance is that of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. وَشَرُّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا. And the worst of affairs is that which is new. Meaning not new because we got some technology. Now we can use glasses and we got some nice pencils and stuff like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. And every misguidance leads astray. It all leads astray. Now, and also in regards to this ahabati fillah, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in Sahih Muslim wa Bukhari, من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فالرد. Whoever innovates in this affair of ours will have it rejected. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said in the narration in Sahih Muslim, من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Whoever does an action which is not in accordance with our affair will have it rejected. Now, يقول حافظ ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibn Rajab, he mentions regarding these hadith, he says, فهذا الحديث يدل بمنطوقه على أن كل عمل ليس عليه أمر الشارع فهو مردود ويدل بمفهومه على أن كل عمل عليه أمره فهو غير مردود والمراد بأمره ها هنا دينه وشرعه. So Imam Hafidh ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, فهذا hadith, this hadith, it illustrates in its alfaz, it's, you know, it's in its what do we say, in the actual text of it, okay, in the way in the text, it is evidence that every action which is not in accordance with the amr shari', meaning the affair of the one who legislates, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فهو مردود, then it's rejected. ويدل بمفهومه, and what we understand, what's implied here, على أن كل عمل عليه أمره, that every action which is in accordance with the shari', with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then it is accepted. It is accepted. And what is meant by the amrihi, by his affair, means his deen and his sharia. So that was a beautiful statement by Imam Ibn Rajab rahmatullah alayhi rahmatan wasiya. قال أمير المؤمنين الخليفة الملهم عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه. So Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه, he said, إن الناس يجادلونكم بشبه القرآن فخذهم بالسنة فإن أصحاب السنن أعلم بكتاب الله تعالى. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala said, and it was narrated, this is collected in Imam in the Sharia by Al-Ajuri rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatan wasiya. He collected the statement of Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala, and in which he said, verily the people, they will debate about you about doubts in the Quran, or what is ambiguous. Sorry, what is ambiguous in the Quran? Quran. So he says, take them, meaning give them evidence in the Sunnah, bi Sunnah, فخذهم بسنة. Take them, debate them, argue with them with the Sunnah. فإن أصحاب السنن, for verily the people of the Sunnah, أعلم بكتاب الله تعالى, they are the most knowledgeable about the book of Allah, the Almighty. Sahib al-Sunnah. This is what we want to be. Also, Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, radiyallahu ta'ala, in a very famous statement, and then we'll get to the questions. اتبعوا ولا تبتدعوا فقد كفيتم عليكم بالأمر العتيق. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, radiyallahu ta'ala, he said, follow and do not innovate. For verily, it sufficed you, or they've sufficed you. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِأَمْرِ الْعَتِيقِ. It's upon you the original affair. The original affair is the affair of the Salaf. The original affair is from the book of Allah and the Sunnah, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa sahabata Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een. So this is what Abdullah bin Mas'ud, a Sahabi, he was a Sahabi even, radiyallahu ta'ala an, is telling you to come back. He was telling the people in his time to come back. Don't get away. Don't get away from the affair of these people who are still living with you, from those amongst them who are still alive, meaning the Sahaba to Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, خَيْرَ النَّاسِ قَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُم. The best people are those people of my generation, then those who follow them, then those who follow them. There it is right there. What else do we need? What else do we need when we talk about our deen and our source for the deen? And how do we know what maybe Abdullah Mas'ud, maybe his statement, maybe we have a new way, maybe we can get around that statement a little bit. Well, when we look at the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah azza wa jalla says, kitab al-kareem, al-yawm akmaltu lakum dinakum. This day I perfected your religion for you. So that's why we don't have to go beyond the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa madhhab as-salaf as-salih. It's done. It's there. It's codified. We adhere to it. We got to refer back to it. What did Imam Malik say? He said, rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatin wasiya. He said, la yaslah akhira hadhihi umma illa bima salaha awwalaha. He said, the latter day generations of this ummah will not be rectified except for what rectified the people before. I know this doesn't sound like what Dr. Qadi says. I know it. It hurts. I'm sorry. And I know that some of these other cats, they also say these kind of crazy, insane things as well, which contradict what Imam Malik said. But we're going to go with Imam Malik. Go ahead and look forward, Yasser, until you look forward out of the deen. وَعِيَادٍ بِاللَّهِ وَإِيَّاكُمْ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. May Allah guide us in him and protect him from leaving the deen of Islam. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Because this is where bid'ah can lead you. Al-ma'asi barid al-kufr. What is it? Sinfulness is a means to disbelief. And bid'ah is what? It's one of the major sins. And you can easily see how bid'ah can lead you to bid'ah mukaffara. You just start bowling ball. When you look at, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but I'm just showing that I can't think of a much clearer, more powerful example that all of us can relate to than Dr. Qadi. That this is a man who used to teach Kashf Shubahat, and then gets on the podcast with old boy in the UK, what's his name, Hijab, and is dissing the book, and they're joking about it. And look at this, is a man that now says that it's not shirk to supplicate to some dead guy in the dang ground. Come on, we didn't say that in our days of Jahiliyyah. I never said no crazy mess like that. You couldn't have told that to me. You couldn't have came to me with some crazy mess like that before Islam and said, oh yeah, supplicate to a dead guy. He's going to really help you. I would have never fell for that crap. I wasn't going out like that. But now Qadi's saying it's just a bid'ah. So this shows you the danger. Look how you could go from calling to Tawheed. That's powerful. That's a lesson for you. And I'm not picking on Qadi, but I'm saying that's a lesson for you. Come on, you're telling me someone can study in these prestigious institutions like Jama Islamiyah, memorize the Quran, know so much about so many sciences, and then you could just almost dang near leave Islam. You could say all kind of sickness until you just fall out of the deen. It can happen. Be careful. What did Imam, let's go back to the statement and then we're going to stop and we'll go to the questions. What did Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala said? Let's just go to the first part. He said, "Ittabi'u wa la tabtadi'u." Follow and do not innovate. Oh, in fact, it's so relevant, so I don't have to say another word. What did he say after that? He said, فَقَدْ كَفَيْتُمْ. It suffices you. So now we'll take questions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil, protect us from kulli su' wa makruh, bless us with ikhlas, with the battle of Sunnah and Nabi, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Naam. La ilaha illallah. Astaghfirullah. How does one attain basira? Seek knowledge, atlub al-ilm, seek knowledge and want to practice the knowledge. If you seek knowledge and you try to practice your knowledge, you will have fiqh fi deen. I don't know if it's you, but someone keeps asking me the same question about basira, okay? But anyway, if you want to increase your Islamic knowledge, I can't tell you about basira. I can tell you about Islamic knowledge. That if you want to increase your Islamic knowledge, atlub al-ilm, seek knowledge, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as possible to help you increase in knowledge, because Allah will increase you. And really in that taqwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means that you're going to adhere to your knowledge more and you're going to avoid the prohibitions more. So the more that you do that, the stronger you'll be in knowledge and you'll gain all that, those other things, inshallah. Hada biyadillah. It's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so those things will help you. But if you just read a book here and there, and then you just want to continue to do major sins, and you do this, and you don't even care, and you're not practicing, you're not bettering yourself. Well, what can you expect? Can you expect to be a computer scientist and you don't pick up the book? Can you expect to be a surgeon and you don't take any classes or anything? You're away from all of that. So I think we all would agree that no, that's not the case. That wouldn't work for us. No. So is it haram to eat a lot of food and during iftar? If you're being excessive and you're throwing up, you're eating like the Greeks used to do, and the Romans that used to eat so much and then they would throw up and then continue eating, yeah, that's haram. So if you're being excessive, whatever that means, okay, then this is a negative trait. This is like, you're wasteful, that a person is, so don't be wasteful. Use common sense. Some of these things are common sense things, really, honestly. Just don't be excessive. Why would you want to be excessive? If you're on a goal, you're trying to put on some weight and you need to for your health, okay, alhamdulillah, but don't be excessive. I'm not sure what the intent of that is. Just use common sense. Some of these things, use some common sense as well. That doesn't negate your deen at all. In fact, it complements your deen. Is it permissible for a woman or mother of a woman to work as an Uber driver? So again, those are general questions. How can you say that a mother or a mother's mother, whether she can work as an Uber driver? Maybe she doesn't have any other options. Maybe she's a single mother. So there's so many masail in there. In general, I wouldn't advise it. It's not the best way, because we see, at least in my city here in this state, we're finding Uber drivers getting killed. We're getting several of our brothers have been killed. I haven't even heard, I mean, there are some sisters probably who do it, but anyway, it could be a very dangerous job doing Lyft and Uber. It'd be better maybe to do the other one where you're doing food, okay? Because maybe you're less, I don't know. This is my thought, but and if a person is going to do that, if a sister is going to do that, then she should try to be in the areas where it's going to be safe, where there's less crime, and probably during the day. So you can't say, oh, it's haram for her. No, you can't say that. You don't know what her haja is and what her needs are. So in general, it's not a good place to be. But maybe she's a single mother. Maybe they need two incomes and the sister has to do that and she has no other way to do remote work or something. Everybody's situation is different. May Allah make all of our affairs easy. I mean, what is the difference between a Hanbali Athari and a Salafi? I don't know. I've never really. What I know is there are some Mubtadi'ah now that call themselves Athari, and they say that's different than Salafi, and they say Hanbalis and so they come up with all. It's really philosophy, is what it is. That's the difference. The difference is philosophy, because Hanbali is a madhab in fiqh in general. We refer to the Hanabila, we refer to the Malikiyah, the Shafi'iyah, and the Ahnaf, the Hanafis. Okay, those are madhab fiqhiyah. That's where they began. They began as madhab fiqhiyah, and from amongst them there are those who are muta'assib, those who blind follow, okay, and blind prejudice. There's those who have taqlid, there's those who have muta'assib, they blind follow, and then there's another group that have blind prejudice as well. Then there are many who are who come later, who are on that fiqh madhab, but their aqidah is totally different than those imams. And that's what you'll find from the books. Just look at what these people claim. So when we have these people say, I'm a Hanbali Athari, I'm not Salafi, and I don't like Salafis, and this is so different, and I'm so in a they just need to put butter on toast, because that's really their argument. It sounds like a bunch of feather waving kind of stuff. And it's batil. So the bottom line is, you want to be, as far as practice, if you're asking the question because you want to get in a philosophical debate, maybe we can do that some other time. But if you're asking because you really, I'm just trying to put it in the most simplest way, that it's just batil, because athari means you're following the athar, means you're following the narration. We just gave you narrations. I regard myself as Salafi. We give you the narrations. The fiqh that I more or less, we try to go with what we find is most in accordance with the dalil. But I studied fiqh mainly ala madhab Imam Ahmed. So when I go to those books, those are the books I go back. I don't consider I'm not a blind follower. I'm not blind prejudice, but my scholars mostly come from that madhab in fiqh, looking at the aqwal of the Hanabila, but looking at the qawl al-rajih, what they feel is the most authentic evidence for each mas'ala. Okay, so long stories, long big bab, but anyway, there is no difference between Ahl Athar wa Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah wa Ahl Hadith wa Salaf Salih. As far as a methodology, the Salaf, we're talking about the first three generations, the Sahaba, Tabi'een with Tabi'at Tabi'een. And in contemporary times, you find that much of Ahl Sunnah, they'll refer to themselves as Salafi. That's it. So they don't, and they also are known as the Firqat al-Najiyah, the saved group. They're also known as Taifat al-Mansura, because these names come from a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not what Ahl Bid'ah claims. They're not Deobandi, they're not Naqshbandi, they're not any of these other Bundis, they're not, Ashari and stuff like this, or Maturidi. La. Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah has the aqidah of what we just described in the beginning, which is the manhaj, the methodology, the aqidah of the Salaf as-Salih, ridwanullahi alayhim, meaning the Sahabat Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, who the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, khayra nas qarni, thumma ladhina yalunuhum, thumma ladhina yalunuhum. Now, hopefully that gives you some insight, I hope, and if not, may Allah bless us in you and forgive us in you, ameen. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Should we assume everything is halal until evidence proves otherwise, or the other way around? What happens if we are doubting every matter in our life? If you're doubting every matter in your life, then you need to be, we can't say, but you should at least make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for certainty and comfort in your affairs. And also strive to increase your ibadah so that you're not dealing with waswas, because that sounds like an issue of waswas. That's what I interpret from the question. So if that's the case, try to deal with the shari'i means of dealing with waswas. And if it is something which is really extreme to where it's like, I do believe in mental health issues and things like this, OCD and other things, then maybe you need to look at what professionals in those fields have as prescriptions for dealing with those issues. So that's what I can say about that. Now, a brother is asking, I live in a non-Muslim country and I signed a contract to receive a scholarship After applying, I reread and I noticed that if I decide to drop out of the school, I have to return the money by a specific date. Okay, this question was asked. Someone asked me this question about a week ago. So I don't know. Anyway, the bottom line is if a person enters this contract, then they're obligated. They're in the contract. Okay. If they break the contract, then they have to pay the penalty. It's that simple. No. And if it's a scholarship and a grant are quite different than a loan. A loan is going to be that they're giving you money or they're paying for this education and you will have to repay the money back. And most of the loans, of course, they are maybe through banks or what have you, and institutions that deal with the banks where you have to pay an interest. Okay, that's very different than a scholarship. A scholarship, maybe they're going to penalize you if you flake out on the scholarship and you don't fulfill your terms. But otherwise, aslan, that scholarship, you're getting free money. Okay. So, inshallah ta'ala, there is nothing wrong with that. And I would say to the person who's involved in that, don't flake out, study and benefit and get your free education and excel and benefit yourself and your family and others with your education. Because through your education, your dunyawi, whether it's a secular education or what have you, it might open job opportunities. It opens up so many doors for you. Okay. Let me give you an example. My personal experience, because I was educated in the university, my bachelor's degree, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that a means for me to stay in Saudi Arabia for many years of my life, as well as in Yemen. Why? Because I had an education, because there was no question. And I have better jobs where I worked 4 hours a day. Many years in Saudi Arabia, I had 4 hour a day jobs in the university with esteem, with prestige, with honor, with the in the eyes of the people, and just in general. And on top of that, I was able to study my deen as if I was a full-time student outside of that, sitting with ulama, personal classes, classroom classes, whatever kind of classes you want. It was all there. And that was because Allah favored me with a degree in political science and a teaching certificate in teaching English as a second language, which was a wasila. It was a means for me to be able to stay and study and get good jobs, and some jobs that even paid very well. Now, so I advise you, gain the benefit and go forward. Is Head and Shoulders? I don't know. I don't look in Head and Shoulders. I have no idea. I have no idea. You could ask somebody else about that, because I really honestly don't know what's in Head and Shoulders. I'm trying to think if of course I've used it before, but I not in a long many years. If you have doubt about something, leave it. It's very simple. Leave Head and Shoulders. If you have a problem with Head and Shoulders and you're scared, fearful of what's in it, get a nice, there's so many natural, now there's so many products out there, so many natural soaps, very good things that don't have either other harmful chemicals in there, that you could do natural and halal. So what else could you ask for? So now, so that's what I would advise with guards: Head and Shoulders or Shoulders and Head. It doesn't really matter. Whichever products you're using, try to find a good alternative, and then you rest assured and you're safe. Now, what's the difference between the Brelawis and the Deobandis? I don't know. Those things are big masail. I don't know, because I've never dealt with Brelawis really. I know in the UK you have a lot, because generally those communities, I think, predominantly are coming out of India and Pakistan and places like this. Maybe in the Arab world a little bit. I don't really know. I don't think so. But you could ask those people. There's a lot of du'at from those backgrounds ethnically, and they have more knowledge because they're relatives. They have relatives that are Brelawis and Deobandis, and they do research into their madhab and so forth. Now, but from my understanding in general is that Brelawis have bid'ah mukaffara that takes you out of the fold of Islam. I can't imagine praying behind a Brelawi. From the little I know, this is almost like something that's well known. I wouldn't pray behind a Brelawi at all. And I wouldn't even ask questions why. Now, if you want to ask questions why after, but don't go to their masjid, but you could learn about it more extensively later. But ma yahtaj, it doesn't really take. It's ma'ruf in the Al-Sunnah. Al-Sunnah knows we don't pray behind Brailois, because, and if we don't pray behind someone like haram, and that it's impermissible, that means they have bid'ah mukaffara, bid'ah that takes them out of the fold of Islam, grave worshiping, things like this. So I would avoid them. And even some of the Deobandis. The Deobandis are not all one picture. Okay. There are some, of course, that are in the fold of Islam. They might prohibit grave worship and Saint Ta'lim. And then there's some of their elders and some of them who have those things. So it's going to depend on the ibra. As far as praying behind someone, which I'm bringing up another issue, has to do with whether they're Muslim or not. You can't pray behind a Rafid Shia, nor a priest, nor a Brailowi, nor anything that also resembles, that has bid'ah mukaffara, which takes you out of the fold of Islam. They pray to the graves, they pray to the dead, you know, whatever, all these kind of horrible things. Wallahu musta'an. How come our Salafi brothers do not spend enough time refuting Deobandis? Only Abu Musab has been debating them, and when exposing them, they only focus on attributes of Allah, not their ta'weez benefits. So I don't know. That's going to be, it's going to depend on what is viewed as a harm or what is viewed as an issue in a person's locality. If you're, for example, we have a lot of Salafis here in America, although we have big Deobandi communities as well, but in a lot of, in general, reverts and big revert communities don't generally in America have those kind of things. They kind of already don't go hand in hand, because a lot of times, unfortunately, there's a lot of nationalists, the Deobandis in general. I've never heard of a Deobandi or somebody really having that thing, except for that they were from Pakistan or India or something like this. I don't, you know, generally that's Deoband, you know. So so then revert communities, except for the mixing in that, generally their issues are different. The Aqidah, the challenges that they face. So you're not gonna have that need. And as I mentioned in the last talk, if you get a chance to listen, as long as someone is refuting Ahl Bid'ah, then this takes it off the rest. It's not necessary. It's not necessary that every Salafi or even 2/3 Salafis speak about Deobandis or Naqshbandis or whoever. It's not necessary. It's necessary that someone does it and takes that responsibility. And as far as people taking that responsibility, we have the ulama. They've written extensive books. There's some excellent pieces of research. And in the English language, someone that I know, a brother, Abu Khuzaima, he's got, even on a website, he's got a lot of reputations and went into their books. He knows the language. He knows how to go to the sources. I'm sure also in the UK, Dhul Fiqar, I used to talk to him in Medina. I know he knows about the Deobandis and knows about those things. And he is Indian in his background, but he knows about that madhab much more because that affects his community more directly. So it's sufficient. That's not everybody has to go into every bid'ah and mention every bid'ah or refute every bid'ah. Bell, as we mentioned, we just did a whole talk, a 30-minute talk. You can go listen to it if you will. And that's my answers right there. Is using mouthwash with alcohol haram? Avoid it. Just avoid it. Okay? Avoid it. And then you don't have to worry about it. You know, there's difference of opinion with regards to it, but the best way is just to avoid it, because there's so many other alternatives that don't use alcohol, that use other things that are beneficial and can clean out, you know, clean your mouth without alcohol. Many other ways. Inshallah ta'ala. What to do if a little brother, or maybe my little brother, what to do if little brother is not praying and parents are negligent of it in Islamic upbringing in general? Is advise. What you can do is advise them, and you and a person in the situation, they know their family better. They know if they snatch their younger brother up if that's going to benefit, and if that's going to cause a greater harm. So all you can do is advise and set an example. That's really the best way in most of those scenarios. Mostly that's going to be the case, that you should be gentle with them, but it's going to depend upon the person's effect upon their siblings. Is exercising intensely and for long duration while fasting considered throwing oneself into destruction? Uh, exercising intensely, for one, most people are not going to be able to. Number one. Number two, that is not a good use of a person's time when they're fasting. So a person like this, they're missing some of the reward that they could be getting. I'm not saying that you're only reading the Quran all the time and that you don't break up things. Maybe you go for a walk, maybe you do some things, whatever. But if they're exercising intensely, that is not the time to be exercising intensely. For one, the harm or difficulty upon your body and so forth and everything else. And number two, you are losing the benefit of Ramadan. So I'm not sure why someone would do that, especially if they don't have to. If they're a sports athlete, an MMA fighter, or something like this, maybe they have to continue to train to a greater or lesser extent because they have a fight after Ramadan, or they have some contest that they have to do. That's their livelihood. But the average person does not need to be doing things like that, and maybe making themselves sick, throwing up. I don't know. All kind of things would happen if you're exercising intensely. You're just beating yourself to death. How come people have not made takfir of Yasser Qadi? Scholars only labeled him as a deviant, but how come he is not kafir if he holds kufr belief like the Quran not being preserved word for word? So again, because it's definitely not something we should ever be eager about making a hukum of takfir, of kufr, on anyone. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, those things are reserved for the ulama. Thirdly, there's conditions for takfir. There's conditions for takfir. It's not just, oh my gosh, he did this, yaqa fi kufr kafir. La. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, what did he say? Which gives us tahrir, gives us these masail, these very important issues like takfir and tabdi'. He says, ليس كل من يقع في كفر تكون كافر, or كما قال. He said that not everyone who falls into kufr is a kafir. When we talk about takfir, we're talking about two categories. Takfir ma'ayin, takfir mutlaq. The general takfir is, as you said, whoever says this, he says the Quran is this, he's a kafir. That's the general takfir. When it comes to implementing it on an individual like Dr. Qadi, then now that is a ma'ayin. That's a specific individual. That requires the Islamic judge or the alim, the one who can implement that as an authority and has knowledge of that, to make that hukum on an individual. And then that hukum on an individual requires a few things that the scholars have made as conditions. Did they make these conditions out of their pocket? No. These conditions are from what is understood from the divine text, from the Quran and the Sunnah, okay, in the madhab of the Salaf. That from those conditions is that the person is not, that they did this knowingly, that they're not, so that goes with ignorance, without ignorance, that they, that they didn't have ta'wil. Ta'wil is an excuse. It's a mani' min muwani'. It's one of the prohibitors to make a takfir. Ta'wil, okay, that they made ta'wil of the issue. So anyway, and also a part of the conditions for takfir is that qama alayhi al-hujjah, that the proof has been established to the individual that, hey, what you said was disbelief. It's a major disbelief. Takes you out of the fold of Islam. Clean it up. Okay. So those are some of the conditions for takfir. So that's why no one, I think, is eager to run and rush to take someone out of the fold of Islam, except for the takfiriyun. Okay. So now, I don't know of, I don't believe he's a disbeliever. And again, it takes dalil when you make takfir of someone. Okay, it takes dalil and qama alayhi al-hujja, that you establish the dalil with that individual. So you should not rush. And so those are some of the issues there. Now, may Allah help us and guide us in Him. I mean, I'm going to go to the Masjid of Bid'ah for Tarawih. How should I deal with them, and to what extent should I engage and mix with them? What do you advise I should do? Well, first and foremost, I don't advise you go to that masjid if you can. I'm assuming you're going there because you don't have a choice. Maybe it's very far to go to a place where the people in generally are on the sunnah, or the administration, or the whatever, or the leader or the imam. So if that's the case, they're Muslim, you're Muslim. You pray in the masjid with Muslims. You pray with them. You can greet them. They're Muslim. Okay. You can interact with them and keep it pushing. If they're giving knowledge, don't sit in their knowledge circles. Plain and simple that. So the average person, you don't want to treat them and make hajar of them and stuff like that. Mostly this is not going to be applicable. The average person, they just come in to pray. Okay. They may or may not be, as you made this hukum and said they're Ahl Bid'ah. Maybe it's only the imam. Maybe it's the administration. Maybe it's, for example, when I refer to Deobandi Masjid, which is very close to, it's going to be the ones closest to me. That's where I will be praying mostly, because I won't have a choice. Either that or I don't pray. I'll pray in the house. So, the average person, there's people on all kinds. There's people who have all kind of, I'm sure there's Ikhwanis in there. I'm sure there is all kind of people. Maybe there's some Salafees in there even, people, who are on the madhab of the Salaf. So we pray, greet each other. Salam alaikum. Oh, mashallah, he gave me a date. I ate the date. I gave him a date. He ate the date. Well, alhamdulillah. That's it. When they get up and they start talking about Jamaat Tabligh or making khuruj or anything else, I leave. That's it. Simple. You don't have to make it too excessive. You can pray there. You can pray with, as long as someone is a Muslim, you can pray behind them, or they can pray behind you. You can pray with them, whatever the case may be. They're Muslim. That's it. But if they are outside the fold of Islam, that's different. So that is the main point there when it comes to when everybody's making an issue of Ahl Bid'ah. Okay, distinguishing between Bid'ah. Obviously it's better to be in a place of the Sunnah. But if you can't, that's all you have. You're going to pray there. You want to be with the Muslims. You want to gain the reward of being in Jama'ah. You may not share all the niceties that you'd like to, because if they are teaching, for example, matter of fact, it was today or it was yesterday in the masjid, and then Jamaat Tabligh. So they had a Jamaat came in from who I don't know where, and we prayed Dhuhr, and then one of the guys started speaking, and either I'd come in late or I was praying sunnahs, my sunnah, and he started talking about. So he talked whatever. He's a Muslim. So I'm gonna come after that. I leave. I prayed, made my dhikr, and leave. I didn't sit with the Jama'ah. I didn't say, hey, let me go on khuruj with you guys or something like that. No. La ilaha illallah. I mean, is it correct to say that Allah Azza wa Jalla is outside time, is not bound by time? For the immediately benefit. It's better to leave. Why would you say anything like that? These kind of statements are really from the philosophers and from Ahl Bid'ah. Ahl Bid'ah, they introduce these things. Allah's not in a makan. He's laysa fi makan, laysa kada. All of these things. The Salaf didn't speak like this. Al-Sunnah began to only deal with those issues because Ahl Bid'ah started these things, so then they would have to refute them. Okay? But those are I've never heard. I wouldn't know what to say if someone said to me about Allah trying to restrict Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by time or saying these things like this. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. But I would say stop. Please stop it. This sounds like bid'ah because I don't read any effort. I don't the Sahaba didn't speak like this. The Tabi'in with Tabi'in didn't speak like this. What are you talking about? That's what I would say if you hear that from someone or you read that from someone, then close the book because that's a clear indication that they're the people of desires. What is the most correct position on nasheeds? I don't know that there's any difference of opinion from Al-Sunnah. I've never heard any Salafi scholars saying that nasheeds are good things. So I would avoid them. I would avoid them. Now, in fact, you hear very tashdeed from Imam Fawzan or others saying it's something it's known from the Sufis, saying that it resembles music. And a lot of it you hear if you hear you'll hear that it resembles there's a lot that they are just like musical instruments and they try to resemble that consciously, some of them. There's a YouTuber by the name of the Muslim metaphysician. He claims that the Quran is uncreated, but at the same time believes that there is no eternal Quran. Yeah, I would run from him. Don't listen to him. Because why would you listen to a philosopher about Islam? I don't know. Why would you listen to something that is clearly sounds shot out? You know, I mean, you're endangering your deen. That's a danger to you. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala said, uh, "Ittabi'u wa la tabtadi'u." Follow and do not innovate. So when you hear strange things, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَمَن يَعِيشْ مِنكُم بَعْدِي فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا, that those people come after me, they will hear many differences. And there's other narrations mentioning that, we'd hear many strange things, and there would be people with strange ideas and things, even though they would be from amongst us. Maybe they're Muslim or, from the people of the Arabs or otherwise, and from the Qawm. Anyway, and the point is, run when you hear that kind of stuff. I don't understand why people shop for crazy stuff to listen to, especially about Islam. It'd be better when it'd be better than listening to a mubtadi'ah. It would be better to listen to someone who disbelieves and they're giving you advice on how to clean your kitchen. Okay, and they're giving you advice on the best tablets to use or what are the best tablets in 2024. That would be much better, more beneficial for you in your dunya than listening to a mubtadi'ah talking about your deen. So why do we even come across all this crazy stuff? I don't understand. Avoid it. Run. It's your deen. Be careful. If I was going to, in fact, go to a physician, I'm not going to listen to everybody about what things to take. And you know what? Maybe I should just cut my arm off instead of have a surgery. Because if I have a surgery, no, I'm not going to just listen to the YouTube for that. Okay, and listen to Tom, Dick, and Harry. I'm gonna go and listen to a professional who was trained. He went to school for eons for that, and he is a professional, and he's trustworthy, and he's maruf. Okay, so and he specializes in that. Okay, so you want to be careful. Likewise with your deen, more so, and moreover, you want to be with Al-Sunnah. Listen to Al-Sunnah intahena. That's it. Don't stretch and go outside that. It's be careful of your deen. Uh, what's your view internally? What's your view on such rhetoric? I don't listen to that rhetoric. I'm not even going to address garbage. Garbage, I believe, goes in the garbage. Goes in the garbage truck. Really, honestly, why would you? Anybody who's coming up, as I said, I think I answered that. What's the best way to get rid of waswas? Again, it's going to depend on the severity. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned some things. And so I would say go to Husn Muslim. This is going to give you some good du'as about waswas and how to deal with it. You know, that's what I would say first. Also, listen to some of there's many things translated now from the mashayikh and from the students of knowledge talking about how to deal with waswas. So I would advise someone who suffers with that to go and listen to something beneficial in that bab, so as to strengthen your iman and deal with that. And if it is something greater than that, as I said, I think in the last sitting about OCD and things that people who suffer from those kind of challenges, that they need professional help. It may be beyond just reading certain du'as and making dhikr, that they may need more than that, and having a firm resolve that they may actually suffer from something more severe. So that's going to depend upon the person and their level of things that they're dealing with. Is it okay to pray behind a Sufi? It doesn't matter the name of what someone is. It matters their aqeedah. It matters if they have bid'ah mukaffara. There are some Sufis that are in the fold of Islam. They're Muslim. They have some tasawwuf. The Deobandis they're all Sufi. That's what makes them Deobandi. They have a madhab of tasawwuf. There are many groups that are influenced. Jamaat al-Tabligh, they're asl. You know, many the group Jamaat al-Ahbash, okay, these guys are wiped out, but they have bay'ah. Their imam, Abdullah Harari, he had bay'ah to, I think, several paths, maybe Tijaniya and this and this and this, you know. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So there's different levels. The people have different levels. Depend. If someone is in the fold of Islam, you can pray behind them. So it doesn't matter their name. Okay, it matters their aqeedah, what they believe. Are they in the fold of Islam or not? That's bottom line. What it comes down to. It's not in the name of al-ibra bi haqa'iq laysa bi musammayat. The reality of something is in its substance, not in its name or its claim. What's the minimum amount of people you need for Jumu'ah? So 3 is the minimum amount, if I recall, inshallah ta'ala. And that also, I think that's according to the Hanabila. I don't know if there's differences according to the madhabs, but 3 would be the minimal in the Hanabila, according to the Hanabila. Half, said we should establish proofs against a person. However, Yasser Qadi is not a lay person. Yeah, I said what I said. I don't know if you want to debate about something. You could, go tell him. But I would not rush to make takfir anyway. As with that being said, Yasser a kafir, given he has knowledge, blah, 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 under Salafi scholars, like Karim Abu Zayd and Uthman, reduced Qadi? I don't know what is that? What do they do to? And other scholars has studied under major Salafi scholars, and other scholars like Karim Abu Zayd and Uthman bin Farouk reduced Qadi. I don't know, and you have a question there, so I'm not really sure what that is. Is it permissible to pray Tarawih at home by yourself or via the streaming on YouTube? No, that isn't. No, you shouldn't. With streaming, no. On the YouTube, no. And some of the mashayikh they've made fatwa about this. Again, if they are Muslim, pray with the Jama'ah. If not, then yeah, your only option is to pray at home. How do we respond to Asharis who refute Allah being up by saying that a person is? We don't refute them. Why would you refute them? Why would you debate with them? If you have the tools, if you're a talib al-ilm, and I've mentioned this before to some of the people because they ask questions, how do we refute this one? How do we deal with this one? We don't. Why is every person who hasn't studied, want to debate and refute everyone else. No, that's not our jobs. That's not the job. That's the job of the scholars. That's the job of the talabat al-ilm that are advanced in knowledge. But not everyone should be getting in debates and arguing. I never debate those guys. Why would I? I teach and deal with those shubahat. If it happens to be in a book, it's an in-depth book on Aqidah. But why would you get into the debate with those people? You're not going to convince them. They don't care. Even if you came with strong hujjah or Burhan, the bottom line is people are on what they're on. And especially a lot of those guys are really muta'assib. They're very stringent. So it's better to learn the correct Aqidah and spread it. And then those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favors with guidance, He will guide them. If there is some scenario where you get into some of these issues and some of these masail and you have knowledge and you're having a discussion with somebody of that aqidah, then that's different. But you need knowledge. You need the tools. You can't, that's like you saying, hey, how do I deal with the guy? He's got 2 daggers here and he's a trained assassin and you don't even have good open hand skills. What am I supposed to tell you? Oh, well, make sure you do an elbow strike first. Put your hand up just in case he strikes towards your face. Keep your face guarded. Tuck your chin. What am I supposed to tell you? No, you don't have the tools. Okay. If you have the tools, then you already know. You don't even need to ask me. But my point is don't get into those debates. That's number one. Number two, if you really want answers on how to deal with some of these shubahat, go to the study of, so many of us have explained Aqidat al-Wasatiyah, which a lot of those things are in. Go to those durus. Don't look for shortcut and paste answers. Rather, go and study. This is my advice to us, for us, as English speakers. Now, if it was one of the mashayikh and he was talking to tulab al-ilm, they have the Arabic language and they also have studied, he might give you a different answer and a better answer, but an answer appropriate for those people. For us, most of us, it's not beneficial that we get in these debates with these guys, but rather study and ground yourself, and then you'll already know how to deal with it. When he asks you, because if you ground yourself in Aqidat al-Wasatiyah, you will have answers for a lot of those shubahat, because you'll know. You'll have it right there. It's in the Wasatiyah. So this is what I say about those things. Try to avoid getting in those disputes with those guys at all. And don't, because they can bring shubahat to you, doubts to you, especially if you don't have the tools to deal with that. Don't. Is it permissible to marry an Ashari or Sufi woman if she agrees to allow me to raise the kids upon Salafiyah and follow my understanding and practice of Islam? For one, if they're Muslim, you can marry them, okay? Just like you can marry Ahl Kitab, okay? But does that mean it's always better for you to marry someone? Again, what I advise people is you want to be kind of evenly yoked in when it comes to Aqidah and Menhaj, because if not, sometimes that can cause grave problems. That's going to depend on your practice and her practice. If you see that truly she seems not just lip service, but you see that she's that kind of character where she will follow her husband and learn from him and respect him, okay, inshallah ta'ala khair. But if not, and you're not always going to know, it's better for you to find someone that you guys are on the same thing. I'm just saying that's better. But I'm not issuing a fatwa and saying this is haram and this is halal. Go do this one and do this. No. But my point is, if they're in the fold of Islam, but you do have to think about your kids, the potential kids to come, inshallah ta'ala, if you're not on the same creed. You should consider those things. Do you advise us to not exercise or get swole while fasting in Ramadan? What if we incorporate both ibadah and hobby time, like running outside while listening to Quran? Yeah, I that's going to be, a person has to advise himself on this. I don't advise you to be concentrating on those things. If you're just, you're concentrating a little bit on your health and stuff like that, obviously you want to be healthy, then that's fine. But for you to think you're going to gain weight, or you're really into, I've got to lose so since I'm fasting, I'm really on this particular diet. And so, concentrate on your ibadah. Concentrate on your ibadahs. That's my advice, is to concentrate on your ibadah. You will make your own decisions on what's good for you and what you need to do. If you have time to do that and the energy, that's going to be for you to decide. But my advice is to concentrate on your ibadah, on that which is going to bring you closer to Allah. If you die trying to get swole, you just died trying to get swole. You're not going to get benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you died, at least you were trying to come closer to Allah and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's where your benefit is. Now, my female cousin married a Shia male. Shall I boycott them and not respond to their salams out of my al-wala wal-bara and disapproval of Shiism, or shall I be cordial and visit the home like a relative? That's going to depend upon your family ties, and it's also going to depend upon is he, that's what he's on, and what does that mean he's a Shia? Does that mean he's a Rafid, the Shia, and he is outside the fold of Islam? If that's the case, all you can do, you can try to advise your cousin. You can be cordial. That doesn't mean you have to visit them, but you could say, hey, I do have an issue. I'm from Al-Sunnah. You curse the Sahaba. You maybe worship imams. I don't know. It depends on what their belief is, what their aqidah is, whether they're in the fold of Islam or not. That's one thing. And secondly, I would say, yeah, you're not going to be super close, but you can still check. That's your cousin. Assalamu alaikum, how you doing? You can call on the phone. Doesn't mean you have to be up in their grill or go, like this. But no, and you can give dawah if you have the ability to give them dawah, or and it's appropriate. Then alhamdulillah, this is khair. So in regards to waswas OCD, you recommend to speak to a non-Muslim therapist if the condition is severe to help get rid of it, or must the therapist be a Muslim? It's better if the therapist is a Muslim. Okay, it's better. But if not, then you go see the therapist that you need to see to help you treat that condition. None of my physicians are Muslim that I'm dealing with. I've dealt with the surgery. I've dealt with, rehab. They're not Muslim. So that's a luxury for some of us. Okay. Or probably for many of us, I should say. There's definitely a shortage of Muslim doctors and specialists in many fields. So a Muslim therapist is very hard to come by. Here where I'm at, it's very hard to come by, and we have a pretty well-educated workforce here and stuff, but it'd be very hard to come by. For brothers and sisters who convert to Islam, what fiqh shall we teach them for their basic worship like salat, wudu, fasting during Ramadan? I've just been referring them to Islam Q&A. Is that okay? So it's not about what madhab necessarily, but it's about the teacher. Does the teacher know fiqh? Can they teach them? So that's what I would refer to a new Muslim, to people who know, even if whether they're Shafi'i, Hanafi, or what have you, but they know, and they're not blind followers or not muta'assib, not blind prejudice. That if they're teaching and they know, and especially they teach based on dalil, then this is khair, because they need some place to start, and then they will advance their knowledge. So hopefully, the main thing is referring them to someone of Ahl Sunnah, and then you're on khair, who's not in blind prejudice, not into blind following, and that they can teach them, and they have knowledge. So they need to be not blind following and blind prejudice, also from Ahl Sunnah, and also knowledgeable, because they could be from Ahl Sunnah, maybe they have no knowledge. So you want to refer them to those sources, and there's so many. Even you wouldn't have to just suffice. Islam Q&A is a place of fatwa. That's not a place of learning your deen. Okay, you're going to learn fatwa. You're going to gain some scholarly opinions and stuff on issues. Those are beautiful. That's questions and answers. But it's not the asl. You're not going through a text. You're not, subhanAllah. I've almost finished Kitab al-Siyam on this YouTube. Tell them to go there. That will teach them some basics of fasting, hadith and fasting from Umdat Ahkam. There are so many talabat al-ilm in English who have got recorded durus. So why wouldn't you send them there? Send them to those places to learn and listen. Then they can do that while they're sewing and while they're on their way to work. They can listen, and they're going to hopefully gain benefit. And you're going to learn your religion because they're going through books. That's where you learn Islam. You don't learn Islam from cutting and pasting from fatwa. The fatwa online, those things are very good and useful, but that's not how you learn. No one does talab al-ilm by learning fatwa. I never heard of that. That would be the strangest thing I could ever imagine. Only the people who do that, people who never gain in knowledge for the most part, unless Allah favors them and opens them up afterward. Because you don't learn. Fatwas just give you, they're going to answer your questions about certain masail, okay? But they are not studying on, that's not a program, that's not a minhaj, that's not a curriculum to going through stuff. So what you do for the new Muslim is you tell them, hey, here's some recorded stuff. I'm doing series on this channel. And I've, like I said, I got how many durus? I've got 4 or 5 hours right now that they can go listen to on Umdat Ahkam and Bab al-Fiqh. In fact, I have whole books and stuff on Ramadan already here from years ago they can go to. Then how many Talabat al-Ilm have recorded these same things? Islam, the Muslim Family Center, they're doing stuff now. And I'm sure Muhammad Munir, and I'm sure Sheikh Tahir, and I'm sure, all around the planet, how many in the UK, how many of our mashayikh and Talabat al-Ilm are teaching. So there's tons of stuff. There's no excuse. There's tons of resources that are free right there. So that's where I would point them to go. Go and do some books, basic books for new Muslims. There's whole series right now. Muslim Family Center, they're doing something. I'm going to start doing something. I've already done something, and I'm going to continue. So, it's there. It's already there. So point them in the right direction, inshallah ta'ala. Since ta'wil is an excuse to not declare takfir on someone, why is it okay to make tabdi' on someone who does ta'wil of Allah's attributes? Because although takfir and ta'wil, takfir and tabdi' are not exactly the same thing. And even the scholars differ. The scholars that go into those masail, they differ over those conditions being exactly the same. And one of the issues is as far as aqamat al-hujjah. Some of the scholars say because there's a lack of dalil for distinguishing takfir and tabdi' and tafsiq, khalas, the hukum is the same. So some of the scholars say that. Some of the scholars say no. There's a difference. Takfir is not like tabdi', and you don't have to establish the hujjah for making tabdi'. So, there's all kind of, there are some differences, and in the severity, there's differences. So still the one making ta'wil, again, that's still blanket. It's still blanket. It doesn't mean everyone who makes ta'wil is going to be excused from being a mubtadi'ah, nor everyone who makes ta'wil is a mubtadi'ah. Okay? It's not, it just doesn't work. It's clear cut. It's not like a computer hukum thing. Okay? So there's other things to consider. There's many other things to consider, and that's why they're complex issues. And that's why, honestly, they're really not issues for the laypersons to be involved in. It really isn't, unless you studied. And even the people who studied, it's not like everybody studied and grounded in those abwab. There are plenty of graduates from the Islamic University of Medina and probably Qura and other places who are not grounded in plenty of issues, and especially those kind of issues. But they might be grounded in their subject matter, which they study. They're grounded. Their specialty was the tafsir. Maybe their specialty was dawah. Maybe their specialty was hadith. Maybe their whatever it was, sharia. And they may not be. I know plenty that are very grounded in certain topics, but in certain other subjects, they didn't have the luxury or the whatever of being able to study those issues in depth like that. Okay. So it's not for everyone to get in and that you're just going to easily be able to, if the scholars have difference on some of these masail, then what about the laypersons? What's left for them? And then the talib al-ilm, and then the beginning student of knowledge. Okay, so it shows us leave those things, especially for getting intricate about that. If you want to go really intricate in those issues, then start writing and start researching. And that means you start researching not with the English speaking students of knowledge, but you start researching from the books and from the ulama, and look at what their aqwal, collect aqwal from the Imam Nawawi and classical scholars, and then come back if you really want to ground, and then look at the mu'asirin, some of our mashayikh Al-Sunnah, and look at what bin Uthaymeen says, Imam Al-Albani, Imam Muqbil, Imam bin Baz, and go into those masail. And then some of those mashayikh who specialize in those and have written extensively, like Sheikh Ibrahim Raheli, and Kathir. There's many mashayikh, and their specialty is Aqidah, and they go into depth about that, and they have written books. And then that gives you that grounding, and that basira as far as those issues, because they're pretty intricate issues. In all honesty, that's why these black and white answers and trying to come off cuff, it's not sufficient. It's not la yakfi. It's not sufficient. May Allah guide us and help us. I mean, should students of knowledge pause their durus? Some of the scholars, that they encourage that, and they say you should make tafriq ibadah. I'm of the view that it's going to depend upon the society and depend. We have a need, and I know we have a need. I know plenty of new Muslims and stuff like that. We have a need. So I will teach. I'll be teaching as much as I can. In fact, it won't even be a nux. I'm going to be studying and teaching. Okay. But maybe shifting towards those things of educating people about the things they need, about the raqa'iq, the things for the heart, Ramadan itself, fasting, the rulings, those kind of things. So that's going to depend upon the student of knowledge. But to say a blanket statement, all the students of knowledge should follow what Imam Abdulaziz Al-Raji says in Riyadh. No, Riyadh is very different than Seattle, Washington, So what's applicable for that Imam there and his view, whereas other mashayikh may not have that view. Some of the mashayikh, they do. We did a lot of durus actually in Medina with the mashayikh that were still teaching. They might have shifted gears, but they still teaching. I remember I was going through tons of durus in Ramadan, which is the funny thing is the mashayikh would say, okay, we're not, but a lot of times, certain mashayikh would stop their durus, plain and simple. And so that was a difference of view. But some mashayikh, they taught. And I remember, especially with Sheikh Ibrahim Raheli, he was teaching. Matter of fact, I think we were going every day. I think we were doing all kind of books. And I remember when he did a Dora, we were doing a lot of Riyadh al-Salihin at one point with some other regular durus that we were doing during Ramadan. Because I can remember that, fasting and going and studying with the Sheikh. And I can't remember Sheikh Abdul Masin al-Abad. I don't remember, but I think he maybe would stop durus. There would be some mashayikh they stop, and some they continue to teach, or some they also make dorat. They would only teach certain things, and so that's going to be really depend upon what the need of the community where the people are teaching and what they feel is beneficial. For me, people who listen to me, I think it's more beneficial because there's some people who are new Muslims that I know and they benefit. So I'm going to teach for them. Whoever wants to listen, tafaddal. If you want to criticize it, that's okay. It's all right. I'm doing what I believe is right before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is good. So it's not really a black and white, oh my gosh, make inkar. I'm not going to point the finger at someone who's teaching or someone who stops teaching, but I'm going to look at what's beneficial for the people that I deal with. If I have the chance, in fact, if I have the chance to go in some masajid or something, then I'll do the khutbah and do whatever else, do some teaching if they want. So I believe in continuing that, because the people in the West, the need is very different than if you were in Yemen or Saudi Arabia or Indonesia or something like that. It's very different society with different needs. Now, how can non-Arabic speakers have khushu'? They can have khushu' very much in total. obviously this is the benefit of increasing your knowledge and the encouragement to learn Arabic and so forth. Just the reciting, just the barakah, and just focusing and going there for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will gain immense reward and benefit, and bi'idhnillah, some level of khushu'. And that's going to depend on the person. There's so many people who are Arabic speakers who have no khushu'. That's a fadl min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People are busy with the dunya. People have a lack of knowledge. People, many things. So the person is going to gain more khushu', even if they don't understand the words, by listening and coming there with the intention. And that's where the other durus and things are going to come. If they're reading about the benefits of the Tarawih and how the Salaf were, and how the hearts are moved and how we should focus and stuff, then they're going to have that to a greater or lesser extent, just by making the effort, even if they don't know much of the meaning. If they don't understand, they will get it. They will get immense benefit and feel that some level of khushu'. So now study it and increase yourself in general in those rulings and in the importance of humility and khushu' in salat. There's many lectures that are recorded already and talking about issues of the heart, and that all that opens the heart and it's going to help you, even if you don't understand all the words. No. So absolutely. Can you please start a lecture on the seerah from the beginning of his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the end of his life? That would be amazing. MashaAllah, there are some Salafis who are doing stuff like that. That is really not my specialty. I do want to do some things like that in the future, but that is not really, seerah is not my specialty. And so that's probably not something in the near future that I will really be teaching, unless I had the blessing of time where I was, could sit and do research and doing the reading, and that was the only, thing I could focus on. But life just isn't like that. I'm not, really, dawah is just something I can do when I can in my free time. It's not something, it's not my job. I'm not a imam or, like this. So we have to live and do other things. So hopefully in the future. And I do want to do something for that. If Allah favors me to get the Athari Institute going again, I do want to do something like that too. Yeah, the makruh, doing dislike things, of course, it's not going to boost your iman, so it could lower your iman. But sins, yazid bi ta'a wa yanqus bil ma'siyah. So I wouldn't say, that it's going to, Allahu alam, reduce your iman, but it depends on if it encourages you to do haram or it busies you from doing obedience to Allah. So sometimes that which is makruh, which is, not makruh, but something that's even mubah, it's permissible, can busy you on obedience. Say, for example, for now, instead of praying, I'm start watching some movies, or not watching a movie, watching a documentary, and I'm watching the news about Philistine or, whatever it is. I'm watching an informative documentary, not something, there's no haram and it's all good, this and that and the other. That could now busy me from obedience to Allah. Meaning, I'm not saying cut out documentaries, but I'm just saying that if you use too much of that which is mubah, that can busy you on ta'ah. Huh? Maybe you go out and you're hitting the weights, as we were talking about, or you're going and you're playing football or whatever, and you just say, oh yeah, we'll delay Asr till later. And then now, next thing you know, it's Maghrib. Now you did something that was permissible, and it busied you on that which was wajib. So now it's become haram. And so then, that's how things can change. So you want to be careful about anything that threatens your iman or busying yourself on obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we say that the Sunnah is preserved, does that mean everything the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever said or done is preserved? Or are there things that aren't included in this? What we know is what suffices us is there. It's preserved. What suffices us for what we need to know, the knowledge that we need to know how to get to paradise, to protect ourselves from the hellfire. He completed his message and it's done. That's what we know. As far as every intimate detail in every second of his life, no, it's not recorded like that. But what we need, alhamdulillah, Allah has preserved the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for what we need to know to get to paradise. The questions that we need to know. For example, we don't know the knowledge of how, for example, the kayfiyah of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know that. We don't need to know that. That's not going to get you closer to Allah or anything. This is Aqidah, which you do not need to know, but you need to know and believe in the unseen. You need to know the knowledge which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in the Quran and on the tongue of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this will help you to get to paradise. This will suffice you. So you have the knowledge which is sufficient for you. Those things which we don't know, we don't speculate. Like the guy you were talking about, the philosopher. Someone was talking about a philosopher, the metaphysician, whatever, the metaphysicist, whatever he is, that's philosophizing about Allah's deen. We don't need to speculate like him. Those people can speculate themselves out of Islam, because that's exactly where the philosophy and all those things can lead you in that path. They can lead you to question Allah, to question his wisdom, to question the qadr of Allah. Next thing you know, you're asking, what did the Prophet, what a powerful hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said that the one would ask question until he asked who created Allah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, letting us know how people would go so far astray with their questioning and their philosophy and their wickedness that they would ask such a question. La ilaha illa ant, subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. So it shows us, ahabati fillah, the importance of sufficing ourselves with what has been revealed. And that goes back to what we said, what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala said, attabi'u wa la tabtadi'u faqad kafaytum. Follow, do not innovate, because you have been sufficed. You've been sufficed. Your deen, khalas intahayna. We don't need anything extra about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfected it. It's done. Kafayna. So we don't need to investigate and speculate anymore. We don't need to speculate about, I wonder what color paradise is. I wonder when the hellfire. No, we don't. Hey, it's this time in China and it's this time in Seattle. How does Allah yanzil? A'udhu billah. La, we don't have to. Instead, we just ittabi'u, as Abdullah bin Mas'ud said. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yanzilu rabbuna tabaraka wa ta'ala kullu thuluth al-layl al-akhir fayaqul. The Prophet ﷺ said, our Lord descends to every last third of the night. And then he says, we don't have to ask how. We don't have to wonder this. We don't have to say, well, if he's descending, but it's this time in Saudi Arabia, and it's this time in China, and it's this time in Bellevue, and it's this time in Linwood. What? No. Fahamt, inshallah ta'ala. Do reverts. Okay, it's a lot of questions, actually. This is the most, one of the most ever, and I'm going to definitely need to go pretty quick here. So we'll try to screen. Do reverts have to start praying right away? Yes, they do. Or do they get them time to learn? No, they're going to learn while they're praying. So it's all a part of the process. But yeah, he or she comes to Islam, you teach them to pray. So they should come to the masjid, and they should be around the believers as much as possible and learn. And people should take out time to teach them and help them and assist them in becoming believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and learning their deen. Now, so yes, they need to know. Someone needs to teach them immediately how to make wudu. And they're going to make mistakes, and there's no problem. And there's no sin. They're just getting reward every time. Even if their salat is totally hit, but they're getting reward. And they're maybe getting the same, if not more. Even though they didn't do it. And if they learn to read the Quran, they can only read harf kama qala sallallahu alayhi wasallam. His reward is twice when he's stuttering. Subhanallah. So yeah, they have to start learning how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah. Can a person fall into major shirk by looking at haram images and videos to the point where they are slaves to it? It can be a wasila to shirk, but just looking at something is not shirk. Okay, even if you look at the cross and you look at a picture of what they symbolize Isa alayhi salatu wasalam to be, that's not going to harm your iman. Okay, that doesn't hurt you. But it depends, it's going to depend upon your i'tiqad, your creed, what you believe. And if you begin to accept and looking at this haram and building it up in your heart, it could lead to shirk, it could lead to disbelief. And that's why Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, al-ma'asi baridul kufr, that sinfulness is a means to disbelief. Wa'iyadun billah wa iyyakum min dhalik. Music is from the major sins, and it is because the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentioned about, he said, people from my ummah, and he mentioned major sins. Like he said, they would think that, the zina, and he mentioned music. What else did he mention? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that people from my ummah would think that this was okay, letting us know what? It's not okay. It's haram. It's major. Okay. He mentioned that along with zina. So it is, it's major. So, ibta'id, be far away. Is that haram to make non-Muslim friends and talk to them, eat lunch with them, practicing Muslims? What about a non-practicing Muslim? What if we only talk about dunya? Is it haram? No, it's not haram. No, it's not haram. Show a good example. Don't compromise your Islam. So make sure that people know, hopefully, that you're a Muslim and that you're praying. So then they respect. Oh, Khalid. I forgot. Oh, you have to pray now. Okay, we'll have the meeting afterwards. Let them know. Oh, no. I don't eat those kind of things. That's haram. I'm a Muslim. I can't eat pork. I can't eat the meat even. It has to be, if it, kosher, something like that. So you're giving dawah, you're setting an example. And that's going to depend upon your workplace or your school environment, to what extent you can give your dawah and stuff, but at least set a good example and, make sure you're not compromising your deen. So when you have, maybe you have relatives, maybe you have associates, whatever, then la bas, inshallah ta'ala, especially if you're setting a good example for them. How can we learn to have Jawam al-Kalim? This is something the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was blessed with. And I don't know if you referred to Jawam al-Kalim except with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the only time I've ever heard it. Now, we know that some people, they speak, Allah has favored them, they speak little, and it has immense import. But the Jawam al-Kalim that is referred to, that we hear referred to, I've only heard it, I never heard a scholar being referred to as that, or even from the Salaf. Instead, we use that to talk about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and his precise and full of import speech. Now, is it permissible to go to a spa and get a massage by a man, as long as we are not naked and we are covered with towels? If it's something that you need a sports massage, you need, for your healing or whatever. If it's something that you need, then inshallah ta'ala, there's no problem. But as long as your aura is covered and it's some sort of need, okay, it's some sort of need, because he's going to be still kind of touching you. It doesn't mean that anything is akramakum Allah sexual or anything like that, but still, in case he's, on your, I don't know, it could be touching some places that don't really need to be touched. So, now, afdal, I personally don't feel that comfortable with a man touching me like that. massaging me. That's just me. It's the generation I grew up with, and that's how we don't really roll like that, unless it's again a necessity. If my doctor has to do that, and he's my back or something, or a chiropractor, okay, that's all good. I'm completely with that. But getting too massagey, I don't know. Allah musta'an. I'd say if it's not a necessity to be kind of careful. I mean, if that's your nature to be funny, but you should be careful about joking too much, and depending on the subjects that you're joking. Are you, some people that is their nature, but I think the more you study the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, having a sense of humor is one thing, but being just a jokester all the time or a clown, no, that's not something which is positive. So you want to make sure your jokes are not haram and lying, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned specifically about those people, and he said, letting us know it's a major sin, because he said, wailul ladhi yuhaddithu liyadhak an-nas, or kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, woe to the ones who they make the people laugh by lying. So anytime, the scholars mentioned that anytime you hear the word wail, then that's one of the signs. It's one of the major sins. That's why you're wailul li kulli humazatil lumaza, wailul lil musallin. All of those things let us know letting us know that the sin that follows that is major. So that's one of the signs. Also, if there's a had with it, that lets us know that it's a major sin too, meaning that there's a prescribed punishment like zina or drinking alcohol or something like this, or killing someone, that those are major sins too. Also, if the Prophet ﷺ said openly that that's a major sin, like ittaqus sab'a mubiqat, or as the Prophet ﷺ said, beware of the 7 deadly sins. So those lets us know that those are major sins. Now, what's the best way to spread the Salafi dawah in my locality if every masjid is either Deobandi or Shia and there are no Salafi? The best way, I mean, that's, again, your duty is to gain knowledge and give dawah to the extent of your ability. Okay, if you don't have knowledge, you can't invite people to that, then what are you how? Then you'd be like Jamaat Tabligh. Okay, so it's very important to seek knowledge. And you can share knowledge to the extent of your ability. Plain and simple. They're not going to allow you to speak in their masjid, probably. Maybe certain individuals, some people in the masjid, and they kind of respect you because they have to respect you for knowledge. And they might ask you some questions. You might be able to clarify for them something. But no, the main thing is atlab al-ilm. If you don't have the opportunity to, you can always call non-Muslims to Islam, which is super important, which is something we're failing to do. What's a good descriptor, a good adjective? We're failing miserably, but I think it's even bigger than that. Because I can think about here in Washington State, there's like next to no effort compared to the only time I remember when there was some nashat was when I was a new Muslim, and we had a masjid, we had a revert masjid. There still might be a what do you call it, community somewhere around here, Worth Dean, I think in Tacoma or something, but still there isn't those efforts that we used to go out in the street and pass out pamphlets, and we used to sell oils and incense and call the people, invite them to Islam, and we shahadas all the time. In fact, that's if we wanted to get married, we had to give shahadas. No one was going to marry us. So we were like, brothers were giving shahadas and sisters were marrying like this and divorcing like that, unfortunately. Wallahu musta'an. But that's how we had to roll. That's how we had to get married. So it was like, yeah, we're giving shahadas all the time. And so you don't see those efforts, but that is something we're lacking in the West in general, especially in a lot of places in America I can speak about. Is it permissible for a person to watch a documentary with music? Don't don't make things difficult. Most documentaries, I don't know any documentaries that don't have music. So I said, watch I might watch a documentary. I wouldn't even open those doors. Don't, khalas. Okay, if you hear the music, turn the music down. It's simple. Don't make things hard. Don't try to get fatwa to close down documentaries or something. The news, everything, you cannot find anything. Your commercial. Okay, what do unless you want to just shut down all correspondence and all social media and everything. But fear Allah as much as you can. That's what I can say. Fear Allah as much as you can. Now, I want to give dawah to non-Muslims but feel hesitant. Don't feel hesitant. Call them to Islam. Best. Call them to Islam and you teach them. What makes the Khawarij wicked creatures and how to deal with them decisively and their harms on the ignorant lay Muslims. So they are, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-Khawarij kilab an-nar. Khawarij are dogs of fire. So that's how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described them. Also, there are many narrations you'll find from the Salaf also about the Khawarij and calling them, making shadid references to them, very stern references and critiques and so forth about them. Also, as far as decisively, that's only comes through knowledge, okay? And as far as stopping them, impossible. That is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would remain, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. So they will arise. They will arise from time to time. Sometimes they'll be kind of dormant. Sometimes they'll be kind of dead. And then they'll come back. Just like people thought they were okay with Al-Qaeda declining. Then ISIS came. And they came with even more and shocked the world on a whole nother level and took over huge swaths of land and territory. So after them, now that they've kind of been vanquished to a greater or lesser extent. I mean, they're still in existence. Their ideology is still there. And there will be some people after them who will probably make them look like ice cream makers. Okay? So this is just the way it is. So basically, through Islamic knowledge, continually teaching until you're in the grave is what is going to combat those ideologies and calling to the book and the Sunnah. Now, also, another thing for reverts. So if you do give dawah to non-Muslims and you have some reverts, try to teach them what you can. Refer them to the callers. How many revert callers and people who are from America or in the UK or in Canada who can teach them Islam, even on the internet? How many classes do we have here, even for reverts? I have a whole series for that. And we have plenty of brothers we have armies of brothers who were reverts, Tahir Wyatt, Sheikh Tahir was a revert. Okay, how many? We have tons. So we have places you can come through the cyber portal and you can invite them so that way they can have some advice or they can learn some books. Sometimes we open stuff just for that. Right now, the Umdat Ahkam and the Umdat Fiqh that I'm doing is for my target audience is somewhat reverts and people who are newer to Islam or don't have a lot of knowledge or just want to go through it. Everybody can benefit. It's for everyone, but I'm teaching to that level. So it's there. So the point is to do that. Yes, they'll be in the masjid and those other places, but you will try to point them in direction of people you trust who are teaching to their level. Now, what if someone makes a joke about Islam around us? Do we just ignore it? So yeah, you can ignore it. You can leave. I mean, the ignoring is probably going to be the weakest of faith because you're going to hate that. But I would say to speak up or leave and, do that. You can rebuke them verbally. It's going to depend. If it's going to cause a fight, then I would say don't cause a fight, especially in your work or your school or something like that. Use wisdom. and use common sense. Common sense is a part of that wisdom. What advice do you have for a person who wants to have extremely eloquent and pervasive speech when calling others to Islam? That takes training, and it's also something. Some of those things are also they're innate. Some you can't train for certain things. Certain things you can't, but other things, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has favored certain people with the gift to gab, as they say. For example, you have certain speakers, and when it comes to my mind, and I think about in the past, prior to Islam, one of the most powerful speakers that affected me and had a major influence on my life was Malcolm X, rahmatullahi alayhi, rahmatan wasiya. Also, Louis Farrakhan, even though he's a mushrik, he is an eloquent speaker in his bab, and he knows his social, the condition. What can I say? He's socially conscious and politically, and he has a tongue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him that gift to gab. So some people it's innate. They train, but they're also innate. Muslim speakers that are reverts that I can think of, okay, from the old school, Siraj Wahaj. He can speak. He can convince. He gives a khutbah. He knows how to do it. And we have many speakers like this. And that's kind of a trained skill, but it's also innate. That's soul food. That's a gift Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given some people with charisma. Some people, they have charisma. You can see it with the scholars. There are some scholars that have, they're ulama, and but they don't have the charisma. Their speaking is not going to be vibrant. They have a different way. When I want to listen to a khutbah, I listen to the Mashayikh of Yemen, plain and simple. I almost never listen to even scholars that I love. Even many of the scholars that I love and I studied with, I never listened to their khutbahs. Maybe I would listen to Sheikh Suleiman al-Rahili because he's a good khatib. But others, they might be decent khatibs, but the Yemeni, no one can touch the Yemenis. And the Yemenis have a different style. They have a different style. And that was where I learned and began some of my studying Islam. And that's what I am upon, because they don't play. The Yemenis have a whole different style. They are serious. They're on cap, and that's a big thing and a big influence. Sheikh Muqbil, Imam Muqbil, was also super charismatic. Super. He has a style. He had the charisma. He could deliver the speech. His khutbahs are, as they say, fire, and his delivery and his charisma. Allah favored him with that. Come on, when you listen to his lectures, na'am, na'am, ya ikhwanina. He's talking about ikhwan muslimin. La ikhwanina fillah, hum ikhwan muflisin. They are the bankrupt brotherhood. Okay, he had flavor, he had humor, he had charisma. That's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some of his students, those mashayikh, Sheikh Muhammad al-Imam, Sheikh Uthman al-Dhamari, most of the Yemeni mashayikh even, especially that older school, the students of Sheikh Muqbil, those guys, even though they have different styles, they are khatib, they're khutbah, they are deliverers of the khutbah, man. And anytime I'm going to give a khutbah, I'm listening. On my way to the masjid that I'm going to give the khutbah, I'm listening to one of those mashayikh. Sheikh Muhammad al-Imam, Sheikh Uthman al-Dhamari, Sheikh Muhammad al-Sumali. Come on, man. So those are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are gifts. You train those things, but they're also gifts. No. So we'll probably make this the last. In high school, near the end of the year, when most of the lessons, if you can leave the class, maybe ask the permission of your teacher. Ask the permission and just say, is it okay if I'm a Muslim, and, just explain to them and say, hey, it's against my religious belief, or I'm going to see things that, it's impermissible for me. So I'd prefer, is there an extra credit assignment? So give them an option. That's going to depend on the community. A lot of places, they'll respect that, but some places, no. If you're in a redneck place, they might not. They might say you have to listen. It depends. You're in some place in Texas, or like a certain place in Texas. There's a lot of Muslims in Texas, but it depends. But you can talk to your teacher. Some major sins are described with kufr. How do we understand them? So I talked a little bit about this. Anyway, those are from the bab. We call that the bab of wa'id. Those are from the bab of wa'id, meaning that they are like the lesser kufr, or that they it's not the kufr that takes you out of the fold of Islam anyway. The man who's doing zina, while he's doing the zina, has disbelieved. That doesn't mean he's outside the fold of Islam. The one who, there's so many, killing your brother is kufr. Okay, this person's not outside the fold of Islam, and they're not going to be in the hellfire forever. Plain and simple. So this is from the bab of wa'id. It's from the bab of threat. Now, that's how we understand those. Al-Sunnah understands that. The Khawarij have a different view, and the Mu'tazila. And we talked about this in maybe Usul al-Sunnah in one of the last classes. I think it was. Look at the last lesson of Usul al-Sunnah, Imam Ahmed, that we just did. No, and we just talked about this last week or the week before. If my mom wants me to do homework, just do it. Just follow your mom. Obey your mom. What do the brothers from Ahl-Sunnah mean when they say between us and you is the books of the Salaf? Meaning that we can settle our disputes. First and foremost, you're going to have to ask them. Secondly, in general, this statement is used as a reference to say, let's take our differences and our issues to the books of the Salaf. Meaning you have an opinion that might be based on desires. Oh, and you think I'm wrong on this. Let's take it back to the books. This could be what they mean, but it depends on who's saying it. And the best way is to ask them. Ask the people who say that. Say, Ustad, what does that mean? Mustn't we ask forgiveness for other people who have forgotten that we transgress their rights? Ask for their forgiveness. Ask for their forgiveness as a part of your Tawbah. Naam, because that's a condition for Tawbah when it has to do with the rights of the other people. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil. If the person is in the fold of Islam and you prayed behind them, your salat is valid. If they're not in the fold of Islam, then your salat is not valid. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.